Everything shocked the world in 2013. He married his partner of 38 years when he was 82 years old. Fans didn't know he was out there. They saved $4.8 million in taxes because of the wedding. But it also made old wounds worse. His partner is finally telling their story 7 years after Jim died. The real reason they hid for 40 years. The incident in Hollywood that made Jim and Rock Hudson no longer be friends. The donor liver that made everything different. You will never look at Gomer Pyle the same way again after Stan tells you about their secret life. She was born on June 12, 1930, in a small Alabama town called Sylacauga. At that time, only about 8,000 people lived there. That's it. His family and his grandma lived together in a small house with 3 rooms. Life was hard because of the Great Depression. Over 25% of people in Alabama were out of work, and many families were just getting by. The family next door was the same. Every day it was hard for them to get enough food. Being in that world as a child taught Jim to be strong and humble. He learned things that he would remember for the rest of his life. Not only was Jim poor, he also had terrible breath. Asthma wasn't treated the same way it is now in the 1930s and 1940s. Many times, he was stuck in bed and couldn't move. It wasn't a sports. It was hard for a boy from the South to answer that question. Jim didn't give up when he felt lonely, though. He turned to music. He began singing as a hobby, but soon it became his life's work. The asthma, which seemed like a curse, pushed him down the road that would make him famous. Mavis, his mother, worked long hours at a truck stop as a waitress and took any tip she could get. Fred, his dad, worked any job he could get. Fred became a police officer for the town in the end. The pay wasn't great, but it gave them some security. They kept chickens in the yard to get eggs and meat to help pay for food. The family got by because they worked hard and were smart. And Jim learned what it meant to do your best at everything. Jim's secret talent was discovered in high school. He joined the Glee Club and the church group. No one thought the shy, asthmatic boy would have such a big, deep voice. But when Jim sang, everyone was shocked. It was his baritone voice that made people give him solos in class and singing. His voice became the talk of the town, and it gave him a new confidence that would help him through life. Jim went to the University of Alabama to study business after high school. It was important for him to pick the safe route. But things changed when I got to college. He became a member of Delta Tau Delta, which is where he. First they tried playing. People noticed him when he was in their skits and shows. Jim was funny, at ease, and himself on stage. Business lessons were important to him, but he found himself drawn to performing. He was more than just smart in college. He also had skill and charm. Jim had to find work after he finished. He went to New York City and got a job at the UN as a typist. From the stage, it was a long way. He felt lonely and far from home as he typed reports in a big, cold office. It was worse for him to breathe in dirty city air. It was his dream to work in show business. He was just trying to get by for now, though. He had to leave New York because of his health. Jim went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and became a worker at WRGP-TV, a nearby TV station. As a film cutter, his job was to cut news clips and ads together. He learned how TV worked behind the scenes, even though it wasn't fun. Until late at night, he would practice his acts in the empty studio, making the chairs look like people were watching. He moved west in the late 1950s because of his asthma. He got ready and left for Los Angeles. In that place, he cut movies for NBC. He played in small places at night and during the day. Almost every meal was a peanut butter sandwich for him. He didn't give up, though. He was sure that if he worked hard enough, someone would see him. Jim came up with the act that would change his life at the Horn, a small bar in Santa Monica. He played a shy, clumsy country boy who would fall onto the stage and then shocked everyone with a huge, oboe-like voice. The crowd loved how the comedians and singers mixed so well. A lot of people liked his shows, so directors started going to see what all the fuss was about. In 1962, Bill Dana, a comic, saw Jim open for someone else. Bill liked Jim so much that he got him on the Steve Allen Show. Jim did his country act and then his voice blew everyone away. There was a huge response. All of a sudden, agents and producers were calling Jim. After all of those. After years of hard work, his time had finally come. Andy Griffith came to the club one night. He was amazed by what he saw his friends do. He told him he could play a part on the Andy Griffith Show for one night. Nabors would play Gomer Pyle, a nice but dull gas station worker. Everything changed with what was supposed to be a single look. The Nabors' charm made everyone like them. The makers knew right away that they had something great. That chance meeting in a small club changed the lives of those neighbors for good. It also changed humor in the U.S. People couldn't get enough of Gomer Pyle when he first came on TV in 1962. Gowie and Shazam, two of his catchphrases, became hits almost right away. His wide-eyed look and deep southern drawl made these words stand out. Kids began to say, "Go to playgrounds." It was used at work by adults. Not even lawmakers could say no. People all over the place used these funny words. They were in comic books. They were in ads. Toys and clothes were even made after them. The words were silly and not dangerous. Back then, it was important for TV shows not to directly talk about God or magic. People were moved by Gomer's simple happiness at a time when the country was changing quickly. His words made me feel safe and amazed. Gomer was such a well-liked figure that CBS had not a choice. Gomer became a regular on the Andy Griffith Show just a few months after his first appearance. A huge number of fans wrote letters asking for more Gomer. Folks liked how kind and funny he was, and how he rounded out Andy's serious sheriff role. Soon, people really liked Gomer's stories on the show. He started to take the show away from other characters. Rarely did Nabors go from being a guest star to a constant. It showed how much people were touched by Gomer's kindness and sense of fun. Gomer did even better after that. CBS did something brave in 1964. He had his own show called Gomer Pyle, USMC. Back then, that didn't happen very often. There were not many spin-offs, and side characters almost never got their own show. The risk paid off, though. Gomer Pyle USMC became a huge hit as soon as it played for the first time on September 25, 1964. It was easy to fall in love with Sergeant Carter, Frank Sutton, and Gomer, Jim Nabors, who was sweet and naive. Every week, watchers laughed because of how kind Gomer was and how frustrated Carter was all the time. Before he got his own show, Gomer had only been in 23 episodes of The Andy Griffith Show. That showed how much people liked him. There were 5 years of the show. Fans got 150 shows. It never went below. Ranked 10th in the Nielsen list. Nearly 2 million people watched it all the way through, making it the second most watched show in the United States. A lot of the magic came from how well Sutton and his friends worked together. Every scene was fun to watch because of Gomer's innocent beauty and Carter's loud anger. In front of the camera, Aaron Rubin and Sheldon Leonard were sure they had something great. Even though they shot in California, the heart of small-town America was caught on a Marine base. People still buy and watch the DVDs and old episodes. An awful lot of scenes had Jim Nabors in them. At that time, that didn't happen very often. People all over the country saw him as a sign of kindness and goodness. One interesting thing about the show was that it never talked about the Vietnam War. The United States was in the middle of that terrible war from 1964 to 1969. But Gomer Pyle never brought it up. They and CBS wanted to take people away from the stress and sadness of real life. It was important to them that the show made people feel better. So, they paid attention to Carter's yelling, funny mix-ups, and Gomer's good heart. It worked. For most of its run, the show stayed in the top 3. People all over the United States tuned in to avoid the harsh realities of the time. But Jim Nabors was in pain that most people never saw behind the jokes and smiles. How sexual he was something he had to hide. In the 1960s, being gay could ruin a job. A lot of his co-stars and crew knew, and some of them were mean to him because of it. They told mean jokes. They didn't include him. They made him feel like he didn't fit. People around him had to keep quiet because they were afraid that coming out would cost him everything. Imagine showing a happy face to millions of people every day while being scared inside. After many years, some, like Ron Howard, said they knew what their neighbors were going through. They heard the mean words and cold shoulders. They saw that people didn't treat him as well as the straight players. The neighbors didn't stop. Always do your job and be nice. It was hard to hear his strength, but it was there. People learned from his story how hard it was for gay stars in Hollywood's golden years. It also showed how brave they were to keep going. Nabors worked even harder than most stars. His days were 12 hours long. Lots of the time, he began before dawn. He had to learn up to 15 pages of speech every night. He didn't have time to relax or be himself. During the weekends and breaks, he played in bars and concerts. He tried to stay busy, maybe to get away from the fear and stress that were following him. He was worried that it would hurt his reputation even when it was at its peak. If the truth came out, it could all go away. It was a surprise when Jim Nabors joined the music scene in 1965. He was already well known for playing Gomer Pyle, the silly but nice figure who made people laugh. That changed when he signed with Colia Records, though. Fans were shocked to see a different side of him. His deep baritone voice was not at all like Gomer's high-pitched drawl. He made more than 30 records in the next 10 years. Most of them were love songs, but he also sang pop, church, and country songs. His fame wasn't just based on how many records he put out. 12 of them made it to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 200. 3 of his records went gold between 1968 and 1974. From 1966's Jim Nabors Sings Love Me With. It got as high as number 34 on the Billboard chart with All Your Heart. His cover of The Impossible Dream was a surprise hit in Australia in 1968, making it into the top 30. Fans who only knew him as Gomer couldn't believe it. No one thought that his voice and music would make people admire him so much. As well, Carol Burnett and Nabors became close in a way that will go down in TV history. The Carol Burnett Show began in 1967, and Nabors was the special guest on the very first episode. That happened more than once. He was the main guest at the start of every season for the next 11 years. Up until the end of the show in 1978. People agreed with Carol when she said he was her lucky charm. Because of friends and Burnett shared the stage with her, and it was impossible to miss how well they got along. People looked forward to seeing him because he always brought heart, humor, and songs that people would never forget. He made time for the show no matter how busy he was. He became a sign to fans that the season would get off to a great start. Nabors was also the star of his own comedy shows. From 1969 to 1971, the Jim Nabors Hour had artists from his earlier work, music, and comedy. He was also in TV movies in 1969 and 1974. He was always great at singing, but dancing was a different story. Anyone who knew Nabors would tell you he didn't have much rhythm. He even made fun of himself for it a lot. In one live show, he tried a fancy dance move that didn't work out. Right there on stage, he tore his pants. He wasn't embarrassed, he laughed with everyone else. It became part of his charm and showed how ready he was to make fun of himself and make a mistake into a big deal. In 1972, Nabors began what is now one of the most beloved sports events in the United States. At the Indianapolis 500, he sang "Back Home Again in Indiana." He kept coming back because people loved it so much. Between 1972 and 2014, he sang the song 34 times in real life. A huge number of people in the Speedway sang along with his deep, strong voice. He had the Purdue marching band behind him, and that moment always gave me chills. Even when he was healthy. A video of his act played before the race to keep him from being there in person. It was full of honors and sad goodbyes when he sang it for the last time in 2014. Fans thought of him as one of their own because he was like a neighbor to them. Like music.